What happens when a billionaire CEO discovers his quiet assistant has deadly secrets? Chen spent 18 months perfecting invisibility at Stone Industries, but one dawn encounter at a luxury resort pool changes everything. When Sebastian Stone sees through her carefully crafted disguise, both their worlds explode into danger, deception, and undeniable attraction. Some stories make your heart race and your mind spin. This is one of them. Secrets, betrayal, and a love that could either conquer all or shatter completely. Where are you watching from? Hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for every shocking chapter. Let's begin. The chlorine-scented air hung heavy around the Blue Ridge Resort's infinity pool as Chen slipped into the crystalline water at dawn. She had calculated this moment perfectly, 5:47 a.m., exactly 13 minutes before the first staff member would arrive for morning maintenance. The pool's surface reflected the Virginia mountains like a mirror. Undisturbed except for her silent strokes cutting through the silence, Emma had spent 18 months perfecting invisibility. Conservative blazers, wire-rimmed glasses, hair pulled back in forgettable buns. She moved through Stone Industries like a ghost, filing reports, managing schedules, and collecting information that could destroy empires. Nobody looked twice at the quiet research assistant who attended board meetings and remembered every word. The water caressed her scarred shoulder blade, a reminder of the night. Her father's pharmaceutical empire collapsed in flames. Literally. The warehouse explosion that killed 12 workers hadn't been an accident, and Emma knew exactly who had orchestrated it. Sebastian Stone had bought her family's patents for pennies after the tragic incident made headlines, and built his biotech division on her father's stolen formulas. She surfaced near the pool's edge, pushing wet hair from her face, when footsteps echoed across the stone deck. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She was supposed to be invisible, forgettable, just another corporate drone attending the strategic retreat. "I wondered where you disappeared to." Sebastian Stone stood at the pool's edge, still wearing yesterday's tailored shirt with sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that spoke of hidden strength. His steel-gray eyes, which had commanded boardrooms and destroyed competitors, now studied her with an intensity that made her stomach clench. For the first time in 18 months, Chen was truly seen. She treaded water, acutely aware that her conservative blazer couldn't hide the lean muscle earned through years of martial arts, training, or the intricate tattoo that curved along her collarbone. A phoenix rising from flames inked the day she decided revenge was worth any price. "Mr. Stone." Her voice remained steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I couldn't sleep, neither could I." He crouched beside the pool, close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched around his eyes. "You're different than I expected." Emma's pulse quickened. Had she made a mistake? Revealed too much during their moonlit conversation by the lake. She had spent months studying his patterns, his preferences, his weaknesses. Sebastian Stone trusted no one completely, kept emotions locked away, and never mixed business with personal feelings. Those rules had made him billions and countless enemies. Different how? Sebastian's gaze moved to the phoenix tattoo, partially visible above the water's surface. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the armor. He wore like a second skin. Patricia's accident was convenient timing. The words hung between them like a blade. Emma's muscles tensed, ready to dive underwater and swim to the far end if necessary. But Sebastian's tone held curiosity rather than accusation. "Accidents happen," she replied carefully. "Yes, they do." His fingers trailed through the water, sending ripples across the surface. "My father died in one. Car crash on a mountain road very similar to these. Investigators called it mechanical failure, but mechanical failure doesn't usually involve severed brake lines." Emma's breath caught. This wasn't information from any corporate file. Sebastian Stone never discussed his father's death, never revealed the vulnerability that had shaped his ruthless rise to power. "I'm sorry for your loss, are you?" His eyes locked onto hers. "Or are you here for the same reason someone wanted?" "My father dead?" The question pierced through 18 months of careful planning. Emma had expected to manipulate him from the shadows, gather evidence of his crimes, and expose the truth about her family's destruction. She hadn't expected this moment of raw honesty, or the way his damaged recognition seemed to mirror her own. "Maybe we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," she said, swimming toward the pool's ladder. Sebastian stood, offering his hand as she climbed out. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot through both of them. Emma saw his pupils dilate, watched his breathing change, and realized that her carefully constructed plan had just become infinitely more complicated. Water dripped from her hair onto the stone deck as she faced the man she had sworn to destroy. Sebastian Stone, billionaire empire builder, was staring at her like she held the key to secrets he had spent decades protecting. "My sweet," he said, quietly, "we need to talk." As they walked toward the main lodge, Emma's hand burned where he had touched it. She had come here to bring down Sebastian Stone, but standing beside him in the pre-dawn darkness, she wondered if she had underestimated exactly who was hunting whom. Sebastian's penthouse suite overlooked the lake where they had shared their first honest conversation. Floor-toozling windows framed the mountains like a painting, but Emma's attention focused on the man pouring coffee with hands that barely trembled. She had studied those hands in countless board meetings, watched them sign contracts worth billions, never knowing they had once pulled his father from twisted metal and broken glass. "Emma Chen," he said, handing her a mug, "daughter of Dr. Marcus Chen, former CEO of Chen Pharmaceuticals." The coffee slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Hot liquid splashed across her bare feet, but she felt nothing, except the cold realization that her carefully constructed identity had crumbled in seconds. "I've known since Patricia's accident." Sebastian's voice held no triumph, only a weary recognition. Real accidents leave evidence. Staged ones leave patterns. "Your application to Stone Industries arrived exactly 3 months after Patricia started showing signs of the wrist weakness that would eventually require surgery." Emma's mind raced through contingencies, escape routes, ways to salvage 18 months of planning. Sebastian continued speaking, his words cutting through her calculations like surgical instruments. "The question isn't why you're here. It's why you've waited so long to make your move." "Maybe I'm not here for revenge," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe." Sebastian stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, mixed with something darker, more dangerous. "Or maybe you've discovered the same thing I did about that night 12 years ago, the warehouse fire. The explosion that killed her father's workers and destroyed the Chen family legacy." Emma's hands clenched into fists. "You bought my father's patents for nothing, built your biotech empire on his work, while he died broken and forgotten. Your father was murdered." The words hit her like physical blows, just like mine. Just like anyone who gets too close to the truth about Meridian Group. Emma's vision wavered. Meridian Group was a ghost, a shadow organization that existed in whispers and sealed court documents. Her father had mentioned them once, the night before the fire, when he'd told her mother they needed to disappear for a while. "You're lying," Sebastian moved to a wall safe hidden behind a landscape painting. His fingers worked the combination with practiced ease, retrieving a manila folder thick with photographs and documents. Marcus Chen discovered that Meridian was using his research to develop biological weapons. When he threatened to go public, they eliminated him and made it look like corporate negligence. Sebastian's voice roughened. "My father was their insurance investigator. He found proof of the cover-up and died for it." The folder felt heavy in Emma's hands. Crime scene photos, financial records, intercepted communications, evidence that painted a picture of conspiracy spanning decades, orchestrated by people with enough power to erase lives and rewrite history. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I've spent 15 years hunting them. Because I know you have skills that go far beyond research assistants." His fingers traced a scar on her wrist, barely visible but unmistakably from a knife blade. "And because we both want the same thing," Emma's pulse hammered in her throat. The scar was from her first assassination attempt, a Meridian operative who had gotten too close to her mother's safe house in Prague. She had been 19, untrained, lucky to survive. "You know about Prague?" I know about Prague, Bangkok, and the warehouse in Mumbai where you learned to fight. Sebastian's eyes held admiration mixed with something that might have been desire. I know you've been tracking Meridian's money trail through shell companies and offshore accounts. You're close to finding their current operation. The admission hung between them like a confession. Emma had spent years becoming invisible, learning skills that would help her survive in a world where asking the wrong questions got you killed. She had never imagined that Sebastian Stone, the man she blamed for her family's destruction, had been fighting the same war. They're planning something big, she whispered. A pharmaceutical release that would make the warehouse fire look like an accident. Sebastian's jaw tightened. When? Next month, during the Global Health Summit in Geneva. World leaders, pharmaceutical executives, medical researchers, all in one place. Emma's voice grew stronger as pieces clicked together. Perfect target for a biological weapon disguised as a terrorist attack. We need proof. Something that will expose them publicly before they can disappear again. The weight of alliance settled between them, heavy with implications neither fully understood. Emma had come here to destroy Sebastian Stone, but the enemy was bigger, more dangerous, and had been manipulating both their lives for over a decade. There's more, Sebastian said quietly. Patricia's accident wasn't random timing. Meridian knows you're here. They wanted us to meet. Emma's blood ran cold. Why? Because they're done playing games. They want us both dead, and they want to make it look like we killed each other. Sebastian moved to the window, staring out at the lake where their conversation had begun. The retreat ends tomorrow. After that, we'll both suffer convenient accidents. The room felt smaller suddenly. The luxury surroundings transformed into a gilded cage. Emma had walked into a trap, but so had Sebastian. They were both expendable pieces in a game neither fully understood. We run, she said. Tonight, running won't stop them. They have resources we can't imagine, connections at every level of government and business. Sebastian turned back to her, his expression hard with resolve. There's only one way to end this. We go to Geneva. We stop whatever they're planning, and we get proof that exposes everything. It's suicide. Even if we succeed, they'll kill us before we can testify. Emma met his gaze, seeing her own desperate determination reflected in his steel-gray eyes. Then we better make sure our deaths mean something. The silence stretched between them, loaded with the weight of a decision that would determine not just their futures, but potentially the lives of thousands. Outside, dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting the sky the color of fire. The Hotel Borovage in Geneva glittered like a jewel against Lake Geneva's dark waters. Emma adjusted the diamond earrings that concealed recording devices, her reflection in the elevator mirror showing a woman transformed. Gone was the invisible assistant. In her place stood Alina Vasquez, pharmaceutical heiress, and Sebastian's supposed new business partner. Remember, we have exactly 47 minutes before the security rotation changes. Sebastian murmured, his hand resting on her lower back as they approached the penthouse suite, where Meridian Group's inner circle was meeting. 3 weeks of preparation had led to this moment. Forged identities, carefully planted intelligence, and a plan that required them to walk directly into the heart of enemy territory. Emma's pulse remained steady, despite the weight of the ceramic knife strapped to her thigh and the knowledge that failure meant death for thousands. Dr. Hendrik should arrive any moment, she replied, playing her role perfectly. Dr. Anton Hendrik, Meridian's chief scientist, believed he was meeting with potential investors for his revolutionary pandemic response system. He had no idea. They knew about the engineered virus, or the antidote that would only be available to Moravian's chosen survivors. The elevator doors opened to reveal a corridor lined with Renaissance paintings worth millions. Each piece had been stolen from Jewish families during World War II, another layer of evil in an organization built on others' suffering. Alina Darling. Sebastian's voice carried the smooth confidence of old money and older corruption. You ready to change the world? The question held double meaning. In 36 hours, the Global Health Summit would bring together leaders from 57 nations. Hendrik's virus, released through the ventilation system, would kill 90% of those exposed within 72 hours. The survivors would owe their lives to Meridian Group, creating a new world order built on fear and dependency. Emma squeezed Sebastian's hand, their signal that she had spotted the first security camera. They moved down the hall like lovers, his lips brushing to her ear as he whispered tactical updates disguised as Enderman. The penthouse door was answered by a woman Emma recognized from surveillance photos. Victoria Meridian, the organization's current leader and granddaughter of its Nazi founder. Her smile was polished steel as she welcomed them inside. Elena Vasquez and Sebastian Montenegro, Victoria said, using their cover names. Dr. Hendrik speaks so highly of your family's pharmaceutical interests. The suite was decorated in stark, modern lines, all black leather and chrome. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the lake, beautiful and cold. Emma counted 7 people in the room, including 3 bodyguards positioned near exits. The good doctor underestimates our capabilities, Emma replied, accepting a glass of champagne she wouldn't drink. My family has been preparing for this kind of partnership for generations. It was almost the truth. The real Elena Vasquez had been Emma's roommate at Oxford before dying in a climbing accident that bore Meridian's signature. Emma had stolen her identity along with her trust fund access codes, turning tragedy into an opportunity for infiltration. Excellent. Dr. Hendrik emerged from the suite's inner office, carrying a briefcase that made Emma's skin crawl. Inside was a vial containing enough modified influenza virus to kill millions. Shall we discuss the technical specifications? Leaned forward, every inch the interested investor were particularly curious about the delivery system. Our facilities in South America would be perfect for large-scale production, assuming the process meets our quality standards. For the next 20 minutes, Hendrik enthusiastically described mass murder as a business opportunity. Emma recorded every word while Sebastian asked increasingly detailed questions, both of them building an unshakable case against the entire organization. The breakthrough came when Victoria mentioned their insurance policy. Of course, we can't proceed without absolute certainty that our key personnel are protected. The antidote production facility in the Swiss Alps represents a significant investment. Emma's breath caught. The antidote facility was the missing piece. The proof that Meridian wasn't just planning an attack, but intended to profit from it. She caught Sebastian's eye, seeing her own excitement reflected in his gaze. Perhaps we could tour the facility, Sebastian suggested smoothly. Our South American production capabilities require complete understanding of the full process. Victoria's smile sharpened. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Security protocols are quite strict. Temperature in the room seemed to drop. Emma noticed the bodyguards shifting positions, cutting off access to the elevator. Toward the knife strapped to her thigh. However, Victoria continued, we do have footage from the facility that might satisfy your curiosity. She gestured to one of the bodyguards who activated a wall-mounted display. The screen filled with images of an underground laboratory where technicians in hazmat suits worked with gleaming equipment. Emma memorized every detail, recognizing several faces from her father's old research team. Impressive, Sebastian said. When do we proceed to the next phase? Tomorrow morning, the virus will be released during the opening ceremony. Victoria's eyes held the cold satisfaction of someone who believed they were about to reshape history. By evening, the old world order will be dead, and a new one will rise from its ashes. Emma felt Sebastian tense beside her. Tomorrow morning meant they had less time than anticipated. The recording devices in her earrings were capturing everything, but they needed to survive long enough to get the evidence to authorities who weren't compromised. There is one final matter, Victoria said, her tone shifting to something more dangerous. We've recently learned that certain parties have been asking questions about our operations. Parties with connections to the late Dr. Marcus Chen and the unfortunate Mr. Stone Sr. The world seemed to stop. Emma's training kicked in, every muscle ready for violence, but Sebastian's hand on her wrist kept her still. They were outnumbered and surrounded, but not yet dead. That meant Victoria wanted something. I'm afraid I don't understand, Sebastian said carefully. Oh, I think you understand perfectly. Victoria smiled with predatory pleasure. Emma, Chen, and Sebastian Stone. Did you really think we wouldn't recognize you? Your little masquerade? has been entertaining, but ultimately pointless. Emma's mind raced through options, escape routes, ways to salvage the mission. They had the recording evidence that could expose everything, but only if they survived the next few minutes. However, Victoria continued, "You've actually done us a favor by coming here. Your deaths will complete a story we've been crafting for years." The vengeful daughter and the obsessed son, driven mad by their parents' deaths, become terrorists themselves. You'll be blamed for tomorrow's attack, painted as the masterminds behind the very plot you came here to stop. The trap was perfect. Even in death, they would serve Meridian's purposes, becoming scapegoats for the greatest act of bioterrorism in human history. Emma met Sebastian's eyes and saw her own grim determination reflected there. They had walked into hell, but they weren't leaving empty-handed. Asterisk, the ceramic knife slid between ribs with surgical precision. Emma twisted the blade as she had been taught in a Bangkok warehouse, feeling cartilage separate and blood pour hot. Over her fingers, the bodyguard collapsed without a sound, his gun clattering across the marble floor. Sebastian moved simultaneously, his hand snapping the neck of the second guard before the man could draw his weapon. Years of martial arts training hidden beneath tailored suits and boardroom politics exploded into lethal efficiency. "Impossible," Victoria breathed, backing toward the windows. "Our intelligence said you were academics, not assassins." Your intelligence was incomplete. Emma retrieved the fallen pistol, its weight familiar in her palm. "We've had excellent teachers." The third bodyguard raised his weapon, but Sebastian was already moving. A crystal decanter shattered against the man's skull, dropping him to the floor in a spray of blood and expensive whiskey. Dr. Hendrik cowered behind his briefcase. The viral weapon clutched against his chest like a shield. "Please, we can negotiate. The process is reversible. The antidote can be mass-produced." Too late for negotiations. Sebastian's voice carried the cold finality of a man who had seen too much death. "The recording devices have everything we need." Emma covered the room's remaining occupants while Sebastian secured the briefcase containing the virus. For other Meridian executives huddled together, their arrogance transformed into terror by the sudden reversal of power. "You cannot stop us," Victoria said, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "This operation involves hundreds of people across dozens of countries. Kill us, and 10 more will take our place. Maybe." Emma checked her watch. 23 minutes until the security rotation. But they won't have the antidote production facility. She had memorized the location from the surveillance footage. A converted World War II bunker in the Alps, accessible only by a single mountain road. Destroying it would leave Meridian's people as vulnerable to their own weapon as their intended victims. "The Swiss authorities already have the coordinates," Sebastian lied smoothly. "Your insurance policy is about to become your death sentence." Victoria's composure finally cracked. "You're bluffing. No one else knows about the facility." Emma smiled with cold satisfaction. "Patricia wasn't the only one feeding us information. Your organization has more holes than Swiss cheese." The lie came easily, building on Victoria's paranoia. In truth, they had discovered the facility location through pure luck. But psychological warfare was often more effective than bullets. "Who?" Victoria demanded. "Which of our people betrayed us?" "Does it matter? The virus will be neutralized, the antidote will be seized, and you'll all die in prison." Sebastian moved closer to the windows, calculating angles and distances. "Unless you give us something more valuable than your lives." "What could be more valuable than our lives?" "The complete list of Meridian operatives worldwide. Bank account, numbers, safe house locations, operational protocols." Emma kept her voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "Everything needed to dismantle your entire network." Victoria's laugh held the edge of madness. "You think this is about money or power? This is about evolution. About survival of the species. The weak will die, and the strong will inherit the earth. Spare us the eugenics lecture. Your grandfather tried that approach and failed." The insult hit home. Victoria's face flushed with rage, her, carefully. Maintained composure dissolving completely. "At least he had vision. You're just children playing with forces beyond your comprehension." Emma felt Sebastian move behind her, positioning himself near the suite's balcony. The lake stretched below them, dark water reflecting city lights. Like scattered diamonds, they were 18 floors up, high enough that even the water wouldn't cushion a fall. The information, Sebastian said quietly. Give us the network data, or we start throwing people off the balcony. Dr. Hendrik broke. First, the files are in Victoria's office safe. Combination is her grandfather's birthday, April 20th, 1889. Shut up, you fool. Victoria spun toward him, fury radiating from every line of her body. They're going to kill us anyway, Hendrik whimpered. At least this way, some of us might survive. Emma saw the moment Victoria made her decision. The woman's hand moved toward a concealed weapon, but Emma was faster. The shot echoed through the suite like thunder, and Victoria crumpled to the floor, clutching her shoulder. The combination works for both the safe and the laboratory's self-destruct sequence. Victoria gasped, blood seeping between her fingers. Destroy the antidote facility, and you kill millions of innocent people along with us. Sebastian's face went white. You're lying. I checked the surveillance footage again. Look carefully at the hazmat suits. Victoria's smile was painted. In blood and malice, those aren't our people. They're hostages. Researchers from around the world kidnapped and forced to work on the antidote. Kill them, and you become the very thing you're fighting against. The revelation hit Emma like a physical blow. Among the hazmat-suited figures in the laboratory, she had recognized faces, but dismissed them as coincidental resemblances. She understood. Meridian had kidnapped the world's leading virologists, forcing them to create the antidote that would save only Meridian's chosen few. How many? Sebastian demanded. 47 of the world's best minds, including Dr. Sarah Chen, Marcus's wife. Victoria's voice held vicious triumph. Your mother, Emma? Still alive after all these years? Still brilliant? Still useful to us? The world tilted sideways. Emma's mother, who she had believed dead for 12 years, was alive and imprisoned in the Alpine facility. The woman who had taught her to be strong, to fight for justice, to never give up hope. You're lying, Emma whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Victoria laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. She asks about you sometimes, wonders if her daughter survived the warehouse fire. We let her believe you died with your father. It keeps her compliant. Sebastian's hand found Emma's shoulder, steadying her as the room spun around them. The mission had just become infinitely more complicated. They couldn't destroy the facility without killing dozens of innocent people, including Emma's mother. But they couldn't let the virus be released either. There's a third option, Victoria said, reading their dilemma with practiced ease. Join us. Your skills are impressive. Your motivations are pure. Help us build a better world, and your mother. Lives refuse and everyone dies anyway. Emma met Sebastian's eyes, seeing her own anguish reflected in his steel-gray gaze. They had come so close to victory, only to discover that triumph might require becoming the monsters they had fought against. The sound of footsteps in the corridor announced the arrival of reinforcements. Their time was running out, and the hardest choice still lay ahead. The Alpine facility clung to the mountainside like a metallic parasite, its modern lines carved into ancient stone. Emma crouched in the snow-covered rocks above the entrance, watching through binoculars as Sebastian approached the main gate. He wore the stolen uniform of a Meridian security officer, his posture adjusted to match surveillance footage. They had studied during the drive from Geneva. 40-6 hours had passed since their escape from the Hotel Borovage. 46 hours of desperate planning, stolen vehicles, and the weight of impossible choices. The virus was scheduled for release in 3 hours, timed to coincide with the morning session of the Global Health Summit. Security check clear? Sebastian's voice crackled through the cum device hidden in Emma's ear. I'm inside the perimeter. Emma watched him disappear into the facility's main entrance, carrying a backpack filled with enough explosives to level the entire complex. They had made their choice in that blood-soaked hotel suite, standing over Victoria's body, save the many by sacrificing the few. Even if the few included Emma's mother. But Emma had lied to Sebastian about accepting that choice. She moved down the mountainside with practiced silence, following a path mapped from architectural blueprints stolen from a dead Meridian architect's files. The facility's ventilation system provided access to the laboratory levels. a weakness built into every underground complex that relied on external air circulation. The shaft was narrow, barely wide enough for her shoulders, but Emma had trained for this kind of infiltration. She moved through darkness, guided by memory and desperation, counting ventilation junctions until she reached the one that opened into the main laboratory. Through the grate, she could see figures in hazmat suits, working at gleaming tables covered with equipment. One of them, a woman with graying hair visible through her faceplate, looked up as if sensing Emma's presence. Dr. Sarah Chen, 12 years older, marked by captivity and loss, but unmistakably Emma's mother. Emma forced herself to remain still. As Sebastian's voice filled her earpiece again, charges placed on the main support columns, beginning evacuation of research personnel. The plan was elegant in its brutality. Sebastian would announce a facility malfunction, ordering evacuation. Through the main exits, while Emma ensured her mother was among the survivors, the hostages would escape while the antidote stockpiles were destroyed, leaving Meridian without their insurance policy. What Sebastian didn't know was that Emma had modified the explosives timer, giving herself an additional 30 minutes to complete a different mission entirely. She kicked out the ventilation grate and dropped into the laboratory, landing in a crouch that scattered glass across the floor. Alarms began wailing immediately, red lights bathing everything in hellish illumination. "Everyone out," she shouted, pulling the ceramic knife from her thigh. "This facility is compromised." The researchers scattered toward emergency exits, but Emma's mother remained frozen, staring at her with recognition dawning in her eyes. "Emma." The word came out strangled, barely audible through the hazmat suit's respirator.
Us.
"You're supposed to be dead. So are you." Emma moved toward her mother, aware of precious seconds ticking away. "We need to go, now." But Sarah Chen shook her head, gesturing toward a sealed chamber at the laboratory's far end. "The antidote synthesis is in the final stage. If we don't complete it, the virus release will kill millions." Heart clenched. Even after 12 years of imprisonment, her mother was thinking about saving lives rather than saving herself. "Sebastian will stop the release. We have people in position at the summit. What if he fails? What if something goes wrong?" Sarah's voice carried the weight of a scientist who understood the stakes better than anyone. 40 minutes, Emma. Give me 40 minutes to complete the synthesis, and we can mass-produce antidotes worldwide. The number hit Emma like a physical blow. 40 minutes was exactly how long remained on the modified timer. If she stayed to help her mother, they would both die in the explosion she had orchestrated. "I won't lose you again," Emma said, reaching for her mother's arm. Sarah pulled away, moving toward the sealed chamber with determined steps. "You won't lose me. You'll save everyone I couldn't save while I was trapped here." Through the laboratory's observation windows, Emma could see the facility's corridors filling with smoke. Sebastian was thorough in his deceptions, making the evacuation look genuine while positioning himself to escape before the real explosion. "Mom, please. I taught you to fight for what's right, not what's easy." Sarah's hands moved across the synthesis equipment with practiced efficiency. "The Chen family has lost enough to these monsters. We won't let them win by becoming killers ourselves." Emma stared at her mother through the chamber's reinforced glass, seeing the woman who had shaped her moral compass, who had taught her that some prices were too high to pay even for victory. The same woman who was now choosing to die rather than let millions of innocent people suffer. "I love you," Emma whispered, knowing her mother couldn't hear through the sealed chamber. She turned and ran toward the facility's main exit, her comm device crackling with Sebastian's voice. "Emma, where are you? The evacuation is complete."
We
"Need to go? I'm coming." She burst through the facility's main doors into alpine sunshine that felt like mockery. "My mother is finishing the antidote synthesis. We have 38 minutes to get the data to the outside world." Sebastian's silence stretched for long seconds. When he spoke again, his voice carried understanding and something deeper. "Transmission equipment is in the communications tower. If we can upload the synthesis data before the explosion, laboratories worldwide can begin production immediately." They ran across the snow-covered ground toward the tower, both of them knowing they were racing against time and the choices that defined them. "Mama." had chosen her mother's dream of saving everyone over the certainty of saving herself. Had chosen to help her do it. The communication tower's base was protected by electronic locks that Sebastian's stolen access codes defeated in seconds. They climbed the service ladder with desperate speed, reaching the transmission array as Emma's timer showed 31 minutes remaining. "Got it," Sebastian said, connecting his laptop to the facility's main computer system. "Downloading the synthesis data now." Through the tower's windows, Emma could see her mother still working in the sealed chamber,
House.
her movements precise despite the approaching death. The antidote was humanity's salvation, created by a woman who had endured 12 years of imprisonment. "For the chance to save lives? Load complete," Sebastian announced. "Laboratories in Geneva, London, Tokyo, and New York all have the synthesis protocol. Production can begin within hours." Emma felt tears on her cheeks, crystallizing in the alpine cold. How long? 17 minutes. Not enough time to save her mother. Barely enough time to save themselves. They rappelled down the tower's exterior. Using climbing gear Sebastian had somehow acquired during their planning, the ground rushed toward them as Emma's CUM device crackled with an unexpected transmission. "Emma?" Her mother's voice transmitted through the facility's internal communication system. "I'm proud of the woman you've become. Your father would be proud too." The laboratory chamber exploded in a flash of blue-white light, taking Sarah, Chen, and the facility's antidote stockpiles with it. But the synthesis data was already spreading across the globe, carried by networks that would turn her mother's sacrifice into humanity's salvation. Emma and Sebastian reached their stolen car as the main facility detonated, carved stone and twisted metal cascading down the mountainside. The sound echoed across the Alps like thunder, marking the end of Meridian Group and the beginning of something new. 6 months later, Emma stood before the United Nations Security Council, delivering testimony that would reshape international law regarding bioterrorism. Recording devices from Geneva, combined with evidence recovered from the Alpine facility, had exposed Meridian operatives in 47 countries. Sebastian sat in the gallery, his steel-gray eyes holding the same intensity that had first seen through her disguise at the resort pool. They had built something together from the ashes of their parents' deaths. Something that honored the best parts of what they had inherited. The antidote her mother had died to create was now being distributed freely worldwide, a gift that would protect future generations from those who would use disease as a weapon. Dr. Sarah Chen's final research paper, published posthumously, had revolutionized pandemic response protocols and saved countless lives. After her testimony concluded, Emma walked through the UN building's marble corridors toward the exit. Sebastian fell into step beside her, their hands finding each other with the natural ease of two people who had faced death together and chosen to build rather than destroy. "Where to now?" he asked, his voice carrying the warmth she had first glimpsed during their moonlit conversation by the lake. Emma smiled, thinking of the phoenix tattoo on her collarbone, of rising from ashes to create something beautiful from tragedy. They had both lost their parents to Meridian Group, both been shaped by loss and the hunger for justice. But they had chosen to honor their dead through healing, rather than revenge. "Wherever we're needed," she replied, stepping into the New York sunshine. "There are other monsters in the world, other secrets that need exposing." Sebastian squeezed, her hand, understanding, passing between them without words. They had found each other in the wreckage of their family's destruction. Two damaged people who had learned that love could grow from the darkest soil. Behind them, the UN building stood, as a symbol of humanity's capacity for cooperation and hope. Ahead lay a future neither of them could have imagined when they were playing roles beside a resort swimming pool. Pretending to be people they weren't while hiding the truth of who they had become, Emma Chen and Sebastian Stone walked into that future together, carrying their scars and their victories, their parents' legacies, and their own hard-won wisdom. They had started as strangers bound by mutual destruction and become something far more dangerous to the world's hidden evils, too. People who refused to let darkness win. The phoenix had risen, and the world was brighter for its fire. The end.